have renowned as the best scout in the world, if I say the least. Best scout in the country, I'll say, probably. Scouted the likes of Jamal, Ben Elliott.
Well, I was involved with lots of players in my time at Chelsea.
Yeah.
But I do always say now that scouting is a team game. So, your best player is always the next one. I just went and watched a kid off the parks in Hackney 3 weeks ago, and I offered him a scholar this week at Southampton. So that is joy for me, under 16 kid, So you always look for the next one. Yeah. Don't look back from that point of view.
That's brilliant. But yeah, so obviously scout, you've been a manager.
Yeah.
And you've also, I've seen that you studied economics at LSE.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been in the game 30 years, but I've been in and out of the game.
Yeah, wow.
So I played a bit, but non-league, and then I coached. I coached at Man City before they had any money.
Wow.
Coached at Portsmouth.
Before they had money? They never had money once?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Oh, wow.
Portsmouth have never had any money, so that doesn't narrow it down at all when I coached them. And then I went into non-league management, and then I went full-time managing at Cheltenham Town and others, and the FA 11 and what have you. But then the last 15 years, I really got into recruitment, into scouting. 12 years nearly at Chelsea, finished in November. But because I had the benefit of a state, I was brought up in the middle of London. I was homeless as a kid, but I had a great family background, a loving family, and I was always told there's nothing you couldn't do in life, So that's the best present you can get, isn't it? So I was the first kid in my school to go to university, first kid in my family. I did a degree in politics at Sheffield University, and then I later did a master's in economics at the LSE.
Wow.
So I did the education bit as well, as still then sort of pursuing the football. So it can do both.
Yeah, excellent.
As you know,
That's
can
brilliant.
do both. So football has been my obsession all the way through. I was brought up in Islington. That was our religion, So it's been a joy for me to be able to work full time in football for such a long time, on and off. It's a privilege, I think. Every time I go to a game, I look round I was at Southampton on last Friday when they won the semi-final, the playoff game against West Brom, and I'm looking all around the stadium at all these Southampton fans, and I'm thinking, I'm so lucky to be working at Southampton now, because all these people would give their right arm to do that,
Yeah.
So it's a joy, as frustrating as it can be.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Well, I love the way you spoke about obviously gratitude, because it's something we're big on, and it's something I think it's a superpower to be able to be grateful. They say you can't be grateful and depressed at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think it's a real superpower, is that it brings energy to you. It brings energy, that positive affirmation, that being optimistic.
Yeah.
They say that, people are optimistic, along all these other factors, they have a longer life.
Yes.
Because they look on the bright side of things. So
Yeah.
I was saying it was great. It was great that you mentioned that. I was wondering, in terms of that, your scouting situation, how do you think your education has influenced that? In terms of being, obviously, you studied at Sheffield and going to one of the biggest unis, LSE.
Yeah. I after I left the LSE, I did my masters at the LSE. It was a 12-month course, and I worked full time on the docks in Millwall with my dad. Wow. How I got the energy and drive to do it? We had a full-time job, working shifts, and did a masters all in a year, and I was playing football at the time. So I don't know where I got that energy from, but from that I did some research work and so on. So that, for example, when I decided I was serious about getting into recruitment, when I'd finished being a manager, I went through the League Managers Association and did a course on using data for performance analysis, and particularly for recruitment in football, because I was determined that all of these bright young guys who were coming out of university, I knew I had the edge in terms of my experience, my eye, but these guys were familiar with the data and how to use it, and I wasn't going to get left behind. So that attitude of wanting to educate yourself, I think that's what I got from my childhood and from my parents, and that drove me through university. But it's also driven me on later in life to always want to learn things. I managed to persuade Chelsea when I was there to pay for me to learn Italian.
Seriously?
Wow.
Yeah, so but because I love Italy and I speak a little bit of Italian, but I managed to persuade them to at least get me a start in Italian. Then I took it up myself. So again, it's this desire to learn. You know, I think it's
Superpower.
always been there from my parents.
Yeah.
So that's helped me adjust and do different roles and learn new things. You know. And this world of social media, last summer, you know, I hadn't done anything on social media at all. And I've got written a book called The Scouting Game, which comes out in January, which is a book on scouting. There aren't any good books on scouting until that comes out, hopefully. But the publisher said, look, you've got to raise your profile.
Yeah,
you know,
that's it.
start doing social media.
Yeah.
So we started from nothing. My wife,
20K
who's
now.
the brains behind the outfit, as well as the looks as well. But she said, let's start doing this, came up with a format. And so we went from nothing in terms of Instagram. I hadn't been on Instagram before then. And then we've got, I don't know, 27,000 followers and things from nothing, you know. And we were getting little videos and reels that were getting 60, 70, 80,000 views, you know.
Wow.
And so we struck lucky that we found something, but it's that willingness to try different things, you know, and doing the podcasts and so on. Yeah, let's try it. Let's learn from it and so on. And that's, I think, helped me adjust as I've gone forward into different roles and different sort of walks of life, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing because one of the phrases that I love to say, it's not about survival of the fittest, but survival of the adaptable.
Yeah.
You know, and one of my good friends always says to me that people don't plan their life.
Yeah.
You know, so looking back at the beginning and
Absolutely.
the journey that you've gone on, would you say you had this all planned out?
Oh, definitely not. No, definitely not. But I look back and wonder how it all happened, you know, rather than thinking, oh, well, that was a good, you know, a good plan. No, not at all. I followed my nose into things and made mistakes all along the way. Everyone makes mistakes. That's not a sin, is it? It's not learning from them is the sin. So I've tried to learn from the mistakes. But I've been very fortunate too that I've landed on my feet, you know, and particularly, for example, my 12 years at Chelsea in the academy, in the recruitment team of one of the best academies in the world, you know, you couldn't fail to learn from working with great players. And lots of, you know, coaches.
Hey, I'm putting out my CV, bro. I'm putting out my
The
LinkedIn.
world best scout.
I'm putting out my
you were a great
LinkedIn.
player.
Hey.
Fantastic.
I'm gassed.
But all the great coaches and everyone in the team there, and the great leadership of Neil Bath, you know, who's been a big influence on lots of people, including me. And so you couldn't fail to learn. I didn't think you know, there's any way I wasn't going to learn there. And then when Southampton came and offered me the opportunity, I thought, well, that's a new challenge, you know. Just like when we started the business, the scouting game, doing player assessments via video of players all around the world. We do them now, and we have a team that does them. No one else does it. We didn't even know there was a market there, you know, to create it. But you have to try these things, you know, and so that willingness to try and make a mistake. Yeah. And that's scouting I think has a lot of the same, because every time you go out and watch a player, and I watch 7 or 8 games a week, you know, and still regularly do at Southampton. You know, I watched 2 yesterday, for example. So you're going to be watching players, and you aren't always going to get it right, you know. And I've talked a lot recently about all the players I've missed. You know, you could put a great team together, the players that I missed. But as a scout, that's going to happen. Just, you know, it's opinion on the day. You know, so when I said, you know, that I didn't think Chelsea should sign Dele Alli because Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Lewis Baker were better players, was I wrong? Well, I don't think I was wrong at the time. Yeah. But obviously they had a fantastic career and went on and did great things, you know. So that you've got to accept that, particularly I think in scouting, because you're not always going to get it right, you know, and you can't be afraid of that. Otherwise, you wouldn't make a decision, and you've got to make a decision. Yes, we should sign him, exactly, or no, we shouldn't, you know. And I'm now in my role as a head of local recruitment. I'm making those decisions every day on kids. Yeah, we should take him. No, we shouldn't. A game last night, 2 players want to take him on trial, you know, and maybe they won't work out, you know, but you can't be frightened of that. You can't be frightened of making mistakes. You just learn from them, you know.
No, that's top. That's top. Just a brief one for me. I guess scouting can be an alien word to some people. I know everyone says this is what a scout does. This is, and everyone thinks they know what scouting is. Yeah. But how would you actually define scouting?
Yeah.
You know.
So It's interesting because it is the last part of football to be professionalised, in my view. There's still a lot of amateur activity goes on, but it is changing. So if scouting is the process of identifying talent, you go out. Well, I even say go out. That's changing because 95% of first team scouting is done by video now. So when clubs like Chelsea and Brighton changed to video scouting, they saved a couple of million each a year just on cost. I mean, there's so much more video available now. So that's a way in which scouting is changing. Even into grassroots, there's platforms now where you can get games from grassroots. So when I say go out, when you're looking at games, you're looking for talent, and identifying that talent is scouting. Bringing them into the building and getting them signed is recruitment. In my head, that's the difference. But the scouting is identifying who's the good player and who's not. Now, I've always said that if you take me or any experienced scout, I think, to a game, I can tell you the best and the worst player in 5 minutes. We all can. We could sit. We would sit at a game now. We would say that player looks good. That player's struggling. And you pick them out quickly. It's all the so and so's in between the difficult. Who's not having a good game today? Who could be good? All the things around players you don't know. They're the difficult things. But the key is you have to know what you're recruiting to. That's the starting point. So again, when I get a lot of young scouts contact me now, I've just got a job at whatever club, how do I go out and find players? And I always say, the first thing, you don't go out at all. You look at what you've got. If you don't know what you've got, how can you recruit someone who's going to make them better? And everyone's so keen and you want to get out and you want to get out there scouting, but you've got to know your own players and you've got to know the standards. And then you're looking and saying, yeah, he could improve us, or no, he's no better than what we've got. Now, in terms of when you're looking at performance, how they play on the day, okay, that's relatively straightforward. But the real difficulty is when I'm looking at a Daniel at 12 and say, well, what would Daniel be like when he's playing in goal at 18? And you hear these people all the time say, oh, I saw Marcus Rashford play at 7 and knew he was going to play for England. And I always say, well, you should come and do my job because I can't tell that far ahead. I can tell you 2 years ahead, maybe, So if I'm looking at under 14, I should be able to say, I think we'll sign him at Scholar at under 16. That's reasonable. That's a reasonable question to ask me. But don't ask me, is he going to play for the first team when he's 20? Who knows, And it's guesswork. But you do have to look at potential. So performance is there in front of you, and it's good or bad or indifferent or whatever. But judging potential is tough because kids change. We all change all the time. Everything changes all the time. Kids particularly. They can change shape. They can change what they want to do. They can change how they express themselves. They might fall out of love with football, or they might develop and thrive. Conor Gallagher. Who would have said Conor Gallagher at 12, 13 was going to be captain in Chelsea? He wasn't the best in his age group. He always had a fantastic attitude, mind you. And now look at him, great player. Playing for England, top player. Well, would you have said Reece James?
Yeah,
Reece
he was
wasn't.
I remember he went through a difficult period. I remember
as a midfield player, he was always a good footballer. Obviously, they're all good footballers at those levels of academies. But would you have said, well, he's going to be the player he is now in his 20s? I wouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that do combine both of them is identifiable in both of them, and in Mason Mount as well, is character and desire. That becomes, because at a Cat 1 club at 16, they're all good players. They're all good athletes, otherwise they wouldn't be there. The thing that, in my experience, picks out those who are going to really succeed is character and desire.
Not talent.
No.
Talent is a
Overrated.
myth. I'm currently reading Bounce.
Oh, right.
Have you read it?
Side.
Matthew
Side. Yeah.
And he says talent is a myth.
Yeah.
It's 10,000 hours or nothing.
Yeah, but
minimum.
Sorry, I was going to say, but
minimum.
Why aren't people working more on their character then?
But yeah, because it's vanity. It's a facade. Because it looks nice. It's like sweets. It's like eating sweets instead of eating your vegetables.
Wait, so you're saying players from a young age should work on their character more than their talent?
Yeah. You should put in the hours. Like, for
it's just a
example,
question.
in the book, it talks about the twins, the chess twins. It talks about Tiger Woods. It talks about all these different athletes that reach the highest level at the young ages. It's because from a young age, they've put in the 10,000 hours of repetitive work and had the character and had purposeful practice, deliberate practice that's allowed them to improve at an astonishing rate. And then they have the growth mindset as well.
You do need physical elements that you're born with.
Yeah.
So you can say, let's take a basketball player, an extreme example. A basketball player can have great application and great work, but if they're 5'6", you know what I mean? You've got to have a certain element of physicality for whatever sport it is that you do. If you're a sprinter or a long distance runner, you've got to have the physique that can go with that or be able to adapt it. So you do need that. There are things that you're born with in that sense. But then after that, it's work. There's the story, isn't it, of James Rodriguez when he went to Real Madrid, you know, and it was his first day there. Big money signing, wasn't it, after the World Cup. And on his first day, he thought, I'm going to make an impression. I'm going to get there half an hour early, you know, and I'm going to be ready and I'm going to go out and do a bit extra. So he turns up at the training ground half an hour early. And they came in and the coach said to him, "Harris, you're early. You know, we don't start." And he says, "Yeah, I just want to get here, do a bit extra." And they said, "Well, look, there's nobody else here." And he could see over in the far distance, running right around the edge of the training ground, there was just one person running. So he said, "Well, who's that then?" He said, "Oh, that's Ronaldo. He gets there an hour early." You know,
that's the level.
Yeah. It's not a surprise, is it?
That's the level.
It's extra. Absolutely, one of the consistent things that you can see in the top sports people is they do extra. Amazing. They do more. And that's where in a sense their talent lies, I think, in their application and their character.
It's amazing.
Yeah. No.
And as a scout, how do you reckon?
Oh, that's tough. It's a good question, because when we're scouting, if we don't know the players, we're searching for clues. That's what we're doing when we're watching. That's good. You can see the things, the football things, the physical things. But character and desire, you're searching for. You don't know the kid. You know, you may have never seen them before. So where do you see that character? When they lose the ball, what do they do? You know, that's, for example, do they want to get it back? You know, or are they, you know, waving their arms about? And if you're close enough, if you're watching it live, so this is another issue with video scouting. If you're watching it live, you can hear. Are they talking? What are they like with their teammates? Are they encouraging? Are they positive? Do they sound like the person you want to be in a team with, you know? Or are they a moaner? When Diego Costa came to Chelsea, they did a lot of research on him, and it was found that he was a real moaner. But the teammates liked him because, and he was popular with his teammates because he was a worker as well, and he would put himself out. So you're looking for these little clues of behaviour. What do they do when they lose the ball? What are they like? And you might not get the chance to see it if you only see them in one game. If they're getting beat, have they packed up? Are they still, if they're a midfielder, are they still showing for the ball, even though they're 3, 4, 5-0 down? Now, you might not see that in the game because they might have an easy game. So that's why you need to see them more than once, of course, if you possibly can. So you're searching for these little clues and they're hints. But then if you like a player, then the other part of scouting is you find out about them. So then we might start saying, okay, well, we like Daniel. He's a good goalkeeper. What, you know, he's got a good frame, everything. Let's find out about him. Who do we know that's played with him or coached him? And then you start making inquiries. And that's where your network comes in as a scout. And you say, what's he like? What's he like in training? You know, what's he like in the dressing room? What's he like off the field? You know, because if you're in an academy, you have a selection, you have a choice, particularly if you're in a top academy, you have a choice of lots of players. So why would you burden yourself with a kid that's going to be a problem, that isn't going to work? They've got to be exceptionally talented for you to put up with that, frankly, haven't they? You know, great example. And hopefully, you know, maybe the pennies drop with him later in life. And good luck to him. He's found a career. There's lots, though, that would go out at that point, wouldn't they, of the game and not find themselves and not find the maturity. But why bother? Wow. And at Chelsea, there's not every year there would have been one, but there's a whole succession of players like that. You think, wow, great talent, we would say, skill, ability, but not going to be worth it. So they've got to be really exceptional to put up with that. So you don't know that, but if I go to a head of recruitment when I'm a scout and say, I think we should sign this player, then that head of recruitment is going to say to me, okay, why? And you say, well, he does this and we haven't got that, and they're either better than what we've got or they're different from what we've got. That's what you look for, better or different or potential. But then the next question is going to be, what are they like? What's their background? You know, and that you have to find that out as a scout, and that's where your network comes in. So watching the player on the pitch and searching for those clues is the first part, the start of it. Then the rest is your connections. And, you know.
I think I have an answer for that question of finding out the desire and character. I think players who go beyond football, they have characteristics that show that desire and character because they're able to go that extra mile, which I think is a characteristic that makes them, you know, proactive, resilient in different things. So that's why it's like, I find it's a consistent thing that a lot of players who might like do something alongside their football, like a lot of players that we've had on.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Like Simeon at Canola. Yeah. So obviously studying alongside it, Josh Pass, Tom Smith. These are players with character.
Yeah.
That you're saying, like, if you ask the scout, they've got character. I know Tom Smith. Well, like on the pitch, he's screaming at his players. You know, he's doing all these different things. He's very passionate about what he's doing. And he just recently graduated from LSE. So I think that's definitely a characteristic in terms of being a beyond footballer.
Yeah.
But also I wanted to say that relates nicely to the world of work in terms of, you spoke about your network, and players, they need to have their references in check.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something that players do enough in terms of having their references in check in terms of going for clubs and everything. They say, they've got their clips from the season, but they don't have their references. You know, when you apply for a job, you have to have your 2 references, and they have to, you know, be from a person higher up from who you've previously worked for.
Yeah.
But players don't have that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I've got a question to come off the back of that, but I think 2 or 3 clubs that I've signed for, when I got there on the first day, the manager named a player or a person that I'd worked with in the past and said I'd given them a call.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just said, what? So you guys are talking about me behind my back? Yes, 100%, because
definitely.
they're trying to vet their environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like that's so important for players? And how different would you say that is academy-wise or coming through and professional-wise?
Well, I tell you what, if I was the manager and I signed a player and they hadn't done their homework on me on the first day, I'm going to say, are you serious about this?
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you not want to know who's going to be managing you?
Wow.
Because you're putting your, you know, who's going to get the shirts? Yeah. What sort of players does he like? What's he like to work for? Players talk, you know, obviously I was a player too. So I think players will do it about coaches and managers. And parents want to do it about academies as well, but that can be quite difficult. But just like when you go into school, you know, you want to, what's the school like? You ask people who've been there or that are there, you know, and it's the same in an academy or in a club. Absolutely, that background. There was a Premier League player at the time that Chelsea have some software that analyses social media feeds. You know, all the clubs have it, and it will identify words that come up a lot, you know, consistently. And one of the words that came up quite consistently on this player's feed was Nando's. And so that was just a little thing that will make you, as a recruitment team, think, let's check this kid out. You know, what's his diet like? You know? So one thing leads to another, and again, they're clues that you're searching for in the makeup. But even if you're not buying a player, if you're signing them, it means you're not signing the others. So if I'm signing this left back, I'm not signing all those. Yeah. And I've got whatever club, you have a limited resource, usually finite resources, and particularly non-league clubs, you know, how many left backs are you going to be able to sign, you know? Yeah. So, okay, you're putting your eggs in that basket. So I want to know what they're going to be like, you know. If they get a knock, are they going to go down and not be seen again? And will they be the next 3 weeks on the table? Very unfair. That's a very old-fashioned way of looking at it. I saw a player, an ex-player of mine, wrote in the book that when he got injured, I didn't speak to him. Yeah. And I thought about it and thought, that would have been a bit mean of me. But I thought, well, why would I speak to him? I want to know who's going to play for me next week. You know? I'll speak to the physios and the medical people. Is he going to be fit? No, right. Okay, forget him. Well, that's how it is.
That's the reality of the game.
That is,
and that's all. Left back.
And that's awful, isn't it?
It is awful.
That's awful.
That's also the reality.
And it did make me check myself and thinking, well, that wasn't maybe a very kind attitude to say. But you can see how it comes. So you want to know if someone's they're are they injury prone? Have they had lots of injuries, for example?
Yeah.
And then you speak to people who know them. Are they going to work, or are they always looking to take a shortcut?
Yeah.
It's an old-fashioned thing again. I like to go and watch a warm-up, and I watch. If I'm going to watch a player, if I'm going to watch you, I want to watch you warm up. And if the coach says, right, guys, we're running to this line and coming back, if you turn around short of that line, I'm going to make a note of it. I'm not saying I'd write you off, but I would notice it.
Character.
Indeed. And it's that thoroughness, that seeing it through, It wouldn't mean I'd walk out the ground and not watch you. But it's a little question in my mind, Is he going to go the whole distance? Because I've never met a player in all my years in the game who, if they cheated, as we say, in training, won't cheat in a game. It doesn't happen. It just does not happen. If that attitude isn't there, if they're going to shortcut, they'll eventually shortcut you in a game. And you can't afford to have that. I know there are players who play better than they train. I understand that. And that's about character, and that's the thing you learn. But to actually take shortcuts, if you do it in training, you'll do it in a game.
Wow.
So I want to know.
Everything's being watched, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, nice.
I had a kid. I remember you would have been there at Chelsea. Came in from Queen's Park Rangers on trial. He was 16. And I liked him forward. We didn't sign him. He went and signed for Spurs. But when he walked into the trial,
I know who you're talking about.
I met him and his dad in the reception. And his dad was carrying his bag. I remember. He didn't have the big kit bag with him, but he had his boots or whatever and a wash bag in a bag. And his dad was carrying the bag. So as he's walked in, I sometimes think back on these things and think I'm so old-fashioned, really. But I said to him, "Is it your dad that's trialing with us?" So he said, "No, it's me." So I said, "Well, why is he carrying the bag then?" I just thought, why would you? Why is you can have your dad carry your bag? What is that about? And so again, I didn't say him to go away, but a little marker in my mind. Thinking, is he going to apply himself? Is he serious about this?
Yeah, it's integrity, isn't it?
Yeah,
when no one's watching.
Those clues that you look for.
But that's the thing. There's a current clip going around about Ronaldo. I don't think you've seen it, but he speaks about the desire to do the things that you don't want to do. That's what makes the most successful people. Being able to do those hours. He talks about it in balance a lot. Basically just bouncing the ball. That simplicity of just doing those reps, doing those hours. Simplicity. And he said, there's a lot of times he didn't want to go to the gym, but he just kept on doing it because that's what it takes, and that's what the sacrifice it is to make it to the top and be.
There's a thing, I think we had it written on the wall at Cobber one time. I don't know if it's still there.
Hard work beats talent.
Hard work beats talent. And also 98% of success is turning up. And that's true. And it's about saying, okay, I don't want to go to the gym today. I'm going anyway. You turn up. And then once you're there, then you work and you do it. But when we're scouts, and we don't know any of this about a player. We're seeing them for the first time. I had a showcase game on Sunday where two teams, 17, 18-year-olds, all unsigned players, came in, two London showcase teams came down to Southampton. And I was watching the game. Great commitment from both squads, absolutely top. And these lads were really applying themselves, really going for it. Some good athletes on show as well. And I'm thinking, well, how do I choose? There's some good players here. I know what we want. So I picked out one from one side, a left back, and a winger from the other side, because I thought that's the sort of players that we want. But their application generally across the board of the two teams coming in, they were doing it. They were at it. And yet, the years and years I've spent putting on trial games or whatever. So let me give this picture. It's a trial game, and someone is half an hour late to a trial game. And that happens sometimes. You can't help that, particularly around London with transport. You're going to be late. And I see them walking at Cobham, down and coming from the buildings, or they would have come from the train station around the back, and then across the buildings all the way onto the 4G on the field turf. It's a long way, they're walking.
Nah, you can't.
And I'm thinking,
trouble for that.
Anyone can be late. Trains can be late, whatever. But you'd run, wouldn't you?
Yeah, get a job on.
And so straight away, I'm thinking, this kid's going to have to be really good.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, he's got negatives against him. So again, if you're a kid and you're watching this and you're going on a trial, get there early. Be ready. Be fit. That's another thing. 5 minutes into a game and a trialist is blowing. You think, why have you not prepared for this? You know, I know they're not going to be as fit as the Cat 1 players. We get that. We understand that, but it doesn't cost you anything to go out and get fit, does it? You can go out and run. You can go to one gym or another, you know, without having to cost you a lot of money. But I don't understand the mentality. And then when you say to these kids, "Do you want to be a professional?" Oh, I'll do anything to be a professional footballer. And you think, well, no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't get here on time, and you wouldn't be fit. You know,
the actions don't line up with their words. Yeah.
So those things, they're the clues that you look for. Are they ready to play? You know, have they come as prepared as much as they can? You know.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, though, in terms of, or not the $1 million, but that's, I think it's the reality behind it, because a lot of players, they want to be that professional footballer, but they're not willing to put in the work.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's a level of inauthenticity. They're not being true to themselves. Like, I feel like players need to be true to themselves in terms of what it takes to get there. Like, you know, we've been through it, the system, the struggles, like, you know, navigating even non-league or even getting released, all these different things. Like, a lot of people, players, when they reach that first hurdle, they want to play, but then I don't think deep down that they're willing to actually put in the work to actually get there.
Yeah.
Similar to what we were saying earlier on about, in order to reach this high level, you have to be a bit crazy.
Yeah.
Delusional.
Yeah.
You
have to
be
be obsessed.
You have to be obsessed.
You do.
And people are not willing to do that, but they want to reap the rewards of those people who, they want to, you know, have that Premier League footballer lifestyle, but they're not willing to put in the work.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
absolutely. And sadly, in recruitment, in scouting, we see that a lot. You see lots of talent, if we can call it that, but without the application, without the character and desire. And that's going to be a struggle. That it's not going to be an easy ride for them. The other aspect we see, and you'll both recognise this as well, I think, is that some of the players who come in, a lot of the players actually, who come into academies, particularly the big ones, when they come in at 6, 7 or 8, they're stars. You know, they're the best kids in their local team. They're the best kids in their school. Probably, if they come from different towns, the best kid in their town, you know, and that's great. And they come and sign for a big club. And everyone in their family, all their friends, you guys will recognise this. Wow, they're at Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, Man United, whatever. That's fantastic. They're stars. That's how they feel. They're treated like stars. They go to these academies where they have the best facilities. They're in these beautiful bubbles, you know, the best, the coaching is glorious places. And they sail through. They might get the odd injury, but let's say they sail through, and they're always progressing. They might play up a bit. Life is sweet, you know, until you hit a problem. That problem might be a bad injury, or with lots of players, it's when you have to make that step into adult football. And suddenly, you're the winger who used to drive past people, and that was your game. Now you're up against a fullback who knows what you're going to do. Or you're suddenly not physically quite as dominant as you were if you're a defender. You're up against people who use their body differently. You know, you go out on loan to non-league, as you've done. You know, people are paying to watch the game, and people are getting paid. A lot of them ex-pros have come out of the game. And it's a different game, isn't it? It's a totally different game. Great experience. I'm a big fan of non-league as a stepping stone. Do that rather than under-21s football. Don't get me started on under-21s. But the point I'm making is that step into adult football is tough. It might be a first loan, maybe, that you make. And so there's whole issues around that. And players for the first time hit a problem, and they've never had to develop the resilience to overcome problems all the way through. So the player who gets an injury, or the Reece James who is not getting it all its own way as a midfielder, has to go to a position initially not really want to play, they've had to overcome something. You know, Connor always having to work and work, and he does. You know, there's 100% every training session, isn't it? So often the players have had to overcome something. Mason Mount goes to Holland, you know, on loan, can't get in the team, ends the season as the supporters player of the year in a foreign country, doesn't get it all its own way, overcomes it. So that resilience is that grit comes in, and that is a key.
But I think it's something Daniel touched on, actually having an identity outside of your football.
Yes.
Which actually allows you to develop the skill of resilience, which is now transferable into your football.
Yeah.
You know, so you know when you come up against a hurdle, you know that the hurdle's not too big for you to actually knock down.
Yes.
But it's actually something which is actually going to make you stronger.
Yeah.
So actually having an identity away from football benefits your football.
Yes.
Because it actually brings a resilience. Because I was sitting here and I was saying, how does a young player develop resilience? Then?
Yes.
Especially if you're in an academy which provides everything for you.
Yes.
And me and Dan always talk, and I'm like, maybe academies need to be a bit tougher.
Yes.
And I don't know.
You need to tell him about your experience with me this season.
Oh,
I've had a mare.
Dan, you share it, bro. You
No,
share it.
because I was just saying, obviously, Toby's been in the non-league system, men's football system for a while. So and I've obviously came through the academy at Chelsea. We never had to wash our kit. We never had to, wash our boots and drive in like an hour and a half to training every day. Make our own food, do all these different things, like not have a pre-match meal before every game. So you had to do everything ourselves. And I think it's probably one of the worst experiences I've had in my life, because it's like, you can tell like, I was like, it was like a little kid not knowing what to do in a situation. Like we stayed over in Maidenhead a couple of nights, and I had like two or three bags on me because I didn't know I didn't know what to do. Like, but it's like, I used to look at him, I was just like, how is this guy doing this? Like, he's got his food, he's got his, clothes washed in his bag. Yeah. He's only got one bag when we're traveling over. I was like, what's going on here? I wasn't equipped to navigate that system that I was in. And it was
institutionalized by the academy.
It was tough.
100%.
Yeah.
I think I was struggling.
Yeah.
But I've seen you grow through that process, and I feel like you had to go through I could have done the stuff for you, but you have to go through it yourself. And I think when you go to a new job, they give you a period of training.
Yes.
And I shared previously that the difference between academy football and men's football is two different professions. Right, so just because you're good at academy football doesn't equal that you're going to be good at men's football.
Yeah.
So I said there needs to be a period of training.
Yeah.
And if there isn't that period of training, and 21s, 23s, I don't think it prepares you because it's not men's football.
No, I agree.
So if you don't have that level of training like Dan's talking about, it's going to be chalk and cheese.
Yes.
It's going to be completely different. So how are you expecting someone who's amazing at academy to be amazing in men's football if they haven't got that training,
Absolutely right. And it is a different world, and it's a much better preparation to go into the non-league. So if you're 17, 18, 19, and you're playing in the top 6 steps, scouts will come in and watch you. I can guarantee you that. Yeah. I went all the way to
Sorry, do you say top 6 steps?
Top 6 steps.
Amazing.
Yeah. Because when you look at the data, going back to, being obsessed with trying to do the job properly and learning, if you look at the data, that a lot of the players who sign for a football league from steps 1, 2, and 3 have previously been in steps 4, 5, and 6. So there might be a season there, and then they come into a National League club or National League South or whatever, and then they bounce from there. So from a recruitment point of view, to find the real talent, you look at 4, 5, and 6. A whole other argument. I'm giving all away my secrets here. But the point is, I went to Swindon to watch a 19-year-old lad playing for a National League South team. It was in the County Cup final. And he's 19 and he captains the team.
What's the team?
Chippenham Town.
Okay, yeah.
And so the next week I was at West Brom watching one of my trialists play for Southampton in the under-18 game. And there were a lot of experienced scouts there. And they come over to me and at the end of the game, and we were chatting, gossiping, as scouts do, networking, we call it, it's gossip,
That's it.
And a couple of them said, one of the guys from Man City said, for example, I heard you went down to watch that boy at Chippenham. This is a small world. What was he like? They all knew about him. Because this kid's 19, captain in a team
South,
in National League South.
Wow.
So if you're a young player and you haven't made it into the academy through the academy route, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, non-league is the place to go. Absolutely. And because if you do well, scouts will come and watch. There's data services now that are set up to provide people like me with information about those young players playing in the top 6 steps.
Non-league gems.
Yeah.
They just released some
Peter
data.
Chadwick,
Just seen.
great service.
Yeah.
Really
amazing.
smart. And so, and it's proper football.
Yeah.
He'd be a good guy to
Non-league gems.
interview. Very interesting. Yeah.
I spoke to him quite a bit. But so that's what we need to do in terms of creating that period of training.
Yes.
Because for me, that almost like I wanted to quit.
Yeah,
I remember.
really. Yeah,
I remember.
I was gonna quit.
He
like-
was telling me. I remember we were talking for maybe 25 minutes. He was proper just down. I said, "Leave then."
I was gonna
Like you got a
I
choice.
was
You
gonna
can either
quit.
stay
Like,
and go through it, or you can leave.
That's
you
it.
know?
Yeah.
Because
And-
it was bad. Like
And so it's interesting because that was nothing about the football itself so much as the stuff around.
the
game.
whole thing was just a mare.
Yeah.
It was a mare. It was bad. Like a bad experience.
So us in academies, we're not preparing players for the
Nah,
real world
no
of
way.
football, let alone the real world outside of football, which is another thing altogether. And I think the issue is that transition into to the men's game and 21s football. Let's look at that. It doesn't prepare you for first team football.
Yeah.
Often, if you're a young 17, 18-year-old and you're playing 21s, it's exciting for you. It's progression. But if you're the first or second year pro, it's like I'm just treading water here, aren't I?
Yeah.
You know, it's not really pushing you on. So it'd be much better. They need to make it more competitive.
Yeah.
The leagues. And Neil Bath at Chelsea years ago said if the Premier League put up a £5 million prize money for it, then teams will start making it more seriously.
Yeah.
Because you guys, you know that football, and you can go along and there's nothing at stake, and you can tell it. You go down the road same night to a step 3 or 4 game where people are getting paid and they're on bonuses, and people are paid to come in and watch them. It's real football. It's proper football.
Yeah.
So it's much more of an education. There's much more training in it in that sense, and you won't have all that support mechanism around you, which can lead. I said before, Daniel, you've been institutionalised by academy football. I think that's what it is, and we do it out of good intent.
Of course.
We're not trying to make people vulnerable or whatever, but everything is provided at the big academies and on tap. I remember a few years ago when Tammy and that cohort were in the
UEFA Youth
18 when we went to Wimbledon, and
we used to get beat by those teams.
And Wimbledon, the first half were 1-0 up.
Yeah.
So 2 things are stuck in my mind. One, the head of recruitment was on the phone to me saying, "Who are these players and why haven't we got them?" But Wimbledon absolutely battered Chelsea at under 18 for that first half. I think Tammy got a goal. And we got back into it, and then I think we got a winner. And that was one of the years they went on and won the Youth Cup. But they played a team that was different. They played a different sort of football. There was a good crowd there. It was at Kings Meadow, which is now Chelsea's second ground. But it was Wimbledon we were playing there then. And it was a totally different sort of football and a totally different way. And they went at us, They really... And that was a great education. Yeah. Now in academies, to be fair, a lot of academies will get their 21s team playing behind closed doors games against good non-league side to a full time, So you see a bit of exposure to different sort of football, and they're better games. But we're not securing the right pathway for young players into the professional game yet. Yeah. And it's that end bit, the loans, the under 21 football, that issue that we're not getting quite right yet.
That's the critical period.
It is.
Because they say 89% of players by the age of 21 they're no longer playing football.
That's terrible.
And I can understand that.
Really, yeah.
I can understand that because for me the drop is too much.
Yes.
I went from being on the bench in the championship to not having a club and training for a step 6 team in Blackpool and playing with them pub football 34-year-olds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went from being on the bench in front of 20,000s in Swansea City Stadium, almost making my debut. 2 months later, I'm playing in step 6.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tough.
So it was like, for me, it's like, the drop is too much.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we know that a lot of players will go through that route and then, as a pathway to coming back. And we in the academies need to find ways to train them, to pick up your points, to support them in other ways. And the pathway stuff is difficult when we get into those age, past scholar and onwards. Most clubs now have someone whose job it is to look at those pathways, and it's not easy. Yeah, not easy at all. Players, if we so come to loans, you might have an idea that will be a good loan for a player. Well, the player might not think so. Their agent might not think so. It's not that straightforward,
Yeah.
you know. And you go there and then you might not get played. And so the loan stuff is important. And when it works well, it works fantastically well. But a lot of the time, it doesn't. You remember Nathaniel Chalobah went on a number of loans and was hardly getting a game at some of them, you know, or the manager would change and it would be a different sort of football.
So many.
So it's a difficult experience, it can be. And I think the academy system is working very well in terms of developing talent.
Yep.
I don't think that can be argued. You know, look at how England's youth teams do compared to what they used to do. And we are getting a lot of players in the Premier League.
Yeah.
We kid ourselves because it's based in England that the Premier League is an English league. Well, it's an international league. It happens to be based here. But we are still getting, look at, you know, who won Player of the Year in the Premier League? Phil Foden, you know, and look at Jude Bellingham and then, you know, Bukayo Saka. There's loads of
Great
top
players.
English players coming through. So it's working. But the attrition level of players who don't make it and what happens to them, particularly the awful percentages that go out of the game, and also preparing people for life in professional football.
Yeah.
We haven't got that end of it right yet, you know, and it's not clearly not easy to do, but we need to do it better as academies.
Yeah.
We need to help players more and learn more. And maybe there's got to be a change in structure. You know, again, can we learn from other countries? Other big countries, big clubs in Spain and so on, they have a B team that plays in 2 or 3 leagues below. Would that be better? What would you rather do? Play 21s football or play in, you know, Division 1 or 2?
Yeah. So we said it in the Mario episode that, you know, I played Barnsley 2021. I played for West Ham under 21s, but I played step 3 for Margate, so I played about 50 games in step 3.
Yeah.
But step 3 was way harder than both of those experiences, and I learned and I improved so much more from that experience than doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but in what you said in terms of restructuring and everything, I feel that's why I'm so passionate about obviously doing this podcast and why I created it. Because when I started this when I was at West Ham, as an under 21 player, first year pro, I was first year of my psychology degree, and I went 6 months without playing one game.
Oh, wow.
So I was travelling up to Liverpool, up to Manchester, up to Newcastle, constantly, weeks on weeks on weeks, where I'm training, working hard, not playing a game.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult period.
Yeah.
And then what happened? I went a whole season without playing 90 minutes.
Really?
No opportunity.
And I'm guessing you never did that any other time since you were...
Yeah, it was the
6
first,
or 7 or
yeah,
something,
so it was the first period of time. Obviously, it's understandable because as a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
But I had opportunities to go on loan, but the club, because of, you know, having goalkeepers around the club, they're not giving you that opportunity. But I'm saying I created it because players need that opportunity to be beyond football. Because I'm saying if I didn't have my psychology degree at that point in time, it would be a very dark place.
What would you have done then without that? What would have?
That's what I'm saying.
How would you have filled your days? And
that's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't know. I think it would be very, very taxing in terms of mentally because I would only have that to think about. Oh, I'm traveling to Liverpool 6 hours, staying overnight. I know I'm not going to play.
Yeah.
In my head, I had sleeping in my room. I don't even have to prep. I could get away with just bothering it off, eating as much as I want to. Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
That's what you think to yourself. But then I had, you know, in the hotel room, I was studying, watching back my lectures.
You had something else.
I had something else.
Yeah.
So that's it.
I think it's interesting because I guess it's your experience, you know, and it's probably so collective with so many different players because I can resonate with everything that you're saying, you know. But the realities of the system that we're in, squads have 25 people.
Yeah.
You start with 11, you have maybe 3 to 7 subs, so 18 people can play on a weekend.
Yeah.
You know, so that means 5 people are missing out.
Yeah.
You know, so there's always people that aren't going to be getting minutes on the weekend. So it's just the reality of the game that we're in. We can't play all 25 people every week for 90 minutes. And I think it emphasizes a point even more why players need to be beyond football and have an identity beyond their football because you never know what's going to happen. And nothing's a guarantee in football. And I think it's only when you go through stuff that you start to realize it. So I guess we're championing a message that this just needs to be taken younger to open up the eyes of the reality. Because I don't think it's personal. No. I just think it's just a reality. It's just football.
It's systemic, isn't it?
It is part of the system. So,
but you know, the funny thing is, when I was a kid, a long time ago, back in the dark ages, But my dad was an Arsenal fan, and we grew up at the Angel in Islington, although I was a Chelsea fan. But we used to go to Highbury, and so if the first team were playing, you'd go. If the reserves, as they were then, playing the football nation, were playing, you'd go and watch them. Yeah. There was no subs in those days. You had 11 players in the first team. If you weren't in the first 11, you played in the reserves. Yeah. Simple as that.
That's good.
So if you were coming back from injury, you played in the reserves and then went in the first team. So that had the advantage then that if you were a goalkeeper, you wouldn't have travelled with the first team because there's no subs in those days, you know. So if you were the second keeper, you were playing in the reserves. At least you were getting a game every week, you know, exactly, a couple of games. So it was an old-fashioned system. And now with the pressures, you've got to have squads. But once you get into squads, you know, then there are players who are not going to play. And whilst there's rotation, there's not as much rotation for goalkeepers, is there? Yeah. So there's going to be some. And so when I'm looking at players now in non-league, because I love to watch non-league football, it's where I feel most at home. And I'm looking at a player, and I had this conversation with a player and his agent recently. He's 18. He's been promised first-team football in National League South next year. And I wanted him to come in and trial with us at Southampton and look to play in our 21s. And, you know, I'm saying to him, to be honest...
Why didn't you sign him and then send him out on loan?
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Good lad. Yeah, so you make a good scout. I'm
going to be
that's
one.
Exactly what. That's exactly.
Be on football.
Hey, well, why not?
That's it.
So that's exactly what the solution would be, to get him in training full time. But if you're that as a goalkeeper in particular, and we say that, let's say it's a goalkeeper, let's say sign, they're going to want to play with the non-league team on a Tuesday night, say, so they're not going to do anything on Wednesday. They're not going to play. They're not going to train with the pro club on the Tuesday or Wednesday, and the pro club they will probably not have them
Thursday,
on the Friday.
Thursday.
So when you say come and train with us and work with us, it might just be 2 nights. Or 2 days, you know, because of the midweek games. So again, it's one of those things that in principle, yes, and that's what I was looking to do with them. But from a football point of view, they're allowed to be better off playing non-league and you know, than 21's football.
But the only reason I say is sign him and get him on loan, because then if he has that structure and system, and obviously financially as well, that'd be more beneficial. So then he can succeed even more. Because then a guy who I played with at Dover, he was on loan from Watford,
right?
Scott Holding. So he had an amazing system where I think he was training a lot of times a week, but he was just getting the best of both worlds.
Yes, it
playing
can
for
work.
Dover, getting the games. But at Watford, he's getting an analysis with his coach after every game.
Yeah.
But then other players who are just at Dover, they're not getting none of that.
Not getting that.
So that's what I'm saying.
And also, I think with the authorities, football authorities could help a bit by allowing more of a dual registration, so that you don't have to necessarily be formally on loan. You know, so if Watford still wanted him back, they could get him back straight away without breaking the whole loan. Now you can do that with a youth loan, but when they're a little bit older, I think it's harder to do. Well, that bit more flexibility would encourage that.
Yeah.
And when players are not, you know what it's like when you're a first-year scholar. You might not get many games in the 18s because you're the under-17, you know, and they've got a squad again. Can you get out and play some football? Well, they're still going to want you available, so you're not really, you know, it's not going to suit a complete loan. But again, a bit of flexibility. So I think we as a game have got to look at the pathway issues to get it right.
It's quite interesting. Just popped into my mind in terms of abroad.
Yeah.
You know, and the concept of the foreign markets. Do you think it'd be beneficial for young players to go abroad? And I think always in the back of my mind, is it easy to come back once you go abroad?
Well, everything changed with Brexit, of course, you know. So we used to, at Chelsea, for example, at Scholar, you'd have 1 or 2, if not 2 or 3. Well, the earlier ones, there would be 5 or 6 coming in at. That's just because the homegrown players weren't good enough.
From my age group.
Well, if the club has signed 5 or 6 players from overseas,
but they were there from young though.
Yeah, well,
people like. Oh, let me not name.
Maybe not. But you see what I mean? From a club's point of view, you're not going to sign 5 or 6 players from Europe at 16 if you think the existing ones you've got are good enough, if they're not different or better, which is what you look for. So now, of course, we can't sign them till they're 18 from Europe. And then they've got to hit certain criteria or be one of our exceptions. So it's much more rigid now. It doesn't help the players. And so, okay, then you're looking at go on loan, but then when can you come back? Numbers of clubs are owned by groups, in groups, as they are at Southampton. Can we make it easier to move players between them to increase the pathway? I think the authorities have got to help, but a bit more flexibility, and then you can do that. Yeah. You can hop on a train or plane easy and get over to France and play. So the games experience can be lots of different places, but it's hard to do at the moment. Yeah. It's still a bit too rigid. It hasn't caught up with the requirements of the modern game. Yeah, right. So we need to overhaul that.
And then just a quick one in terms of the recognition from a scout's perspective of these leagues that are abroad compared to the non-league.
Yeah.
Is it better for an 18, 19, 20-year-old to go abroad and play, or is it better for them to play in a non-league if they have chances to kind of go all the way to the Premier League?
It depends on one country to another. I think that will be the thing. So if a player is going on to a top 5 league, one of the other top 5 leagues, so Germany, Spain, France, Italy, and if they're going to the top division only, probably it's going to be good football. But remember, in lots of other countries, Italy, for example, I love Italy, Serie B, Serie C, the standard of football is not fantastic. You soon get into... there's no other country that has as many professional footballers as we do. It's bizarre. We're overloaded in many ways, but it does mean that we've got a good standard of football reaching down. Other countries don't have it. So before long, you're going into part-time football if you don't hit the big clubs. And if you get into some of the smaller countries, then again, the standard, is it so different from whichever the championship my club is at the moment, or the Premier League? The football gets to be so different that, again, like 21s football, you're not preparing them for that. So I think that's why, again, I think non-league football over here, the pitches have improved, haven't they? The facilities, the fitness of players, coaching, it's a much better product. It used to be all physicality. Well, it's not now. There's lots of good teams playing good football, and I think that is better. It's closer, certainly closer to Division 1 and Division 2, and arguably a better arrangement from Championship. I mean, after all, when have people jumped straight into the Premier League from Division 2? That doesn't happen, really. But non-league is closer to our games in the lower leagues than some of the European leagues. So again, in terms of preparation, it's a different sort of football. It can suit some players better, but we've seen players at Chelsea over the years, good technical players. They got to the end of their first year pro, even second year pro, and they are not really ready for Division 1, Division 2, which is a much more physical game. So they go off and play in Sweden or somewhere, or some good technical clubs in Holland, and I get that, but they're not actually advancing to be ready back for English football because it's so different. So if we were still in the European Union, I wish we were, for all sorts of reasons.
Need to get an Irish passport.
Well, maybe that's the way forward.
I've got one.
Yeah, well, there you go. Smart boy.
But no, I know exactly who you're talking about there. A few players in my age group. Yeah.
They've disappeared, haven't they, Dan?
Yeah, it's sad though. It's sad to see and hear because they were like top talent.
Top technical players.
Top technical players.
Yeah, and it's the other part of the games that you need, that physicality, that application, that you need to be able to add to get on in the English game, particularly. And are we preparing them well enough for that? We've still got a bit of a way to go. Yeah. And again, 21s football doesn't help in that.
Yeah, I'm just conscious of time. We're about to
to
wrap up soon. But I was wondering, what role do you think scouts play in helping players transition beyond football?
We don't play a positive role far too often. I always say, if I recruit a player, I go out and see like this lad I saw a couple of weeks ago in East London, under 16, and now he's come in on trial and we've offered him scholar, which is fantastic. He'll always be my player. And I say that to them and the parents. Whatever happens, if you leave the club, whatever, you'll always be able to call them. And so I'm in touch with players that I managed 20 odd years ago, still, because they're always my player once they're a player. So I will always help. And often it is you help by, or I've been released from here. Can you find me another club? Help me find another club. And of course, happy to do that. That's because I take my role as a scout seriously, or as a person seriously, I would hope. But a lot of scouts don't have that relationship with players and they lose touch with them. Some clubs are better than others, as you guys know, at helping further down the line. But we've got to look in the game. Our responsibility goes on beyond. And, okay, player care is improving, is developing field in academies. And they are certainly people who should, and I know sometimes do, look beyond football at what you might be able to do. But as a scout, I take it personally. If you're my player, I will be there to try and help you to go on. And it may well be to say, look, have you thought about doing something else? What else are you getting ready to do? You know, or scholarship to USA, you know, and that's anything. There's lots of different avenues, but not everyone takes that view, I have to say. Sad.
Yeah. It's mad. From you?
You know, I could sit here for hours and just pepper the questions. So,
but how can people be ready? You mentioned your book, but you mentioned the scouting game. How can people connect with that and then really utilize that to obviously help their career?
Well, the reason I started the scouting game was that so many parents got in touch with us and saying, look, no one's given my kid any feedback. They can go on a trial. They can even be in an academy and get released. No one said what their strengths and weaknesses are. So my wife said to me, well, you can do that. You do that. Let's start offering that to people. So that's what we do. Amazing. So now we do 99% by video, players from all around the world. They send us a couple of videos. We analyse them because we've got a team of analysts as well. We give an 11-page breakdown on a player. 11 pages. You never get that anywhere else. You know, we take their game apart, and then I present that to them in an hour Zoom, where we go over everything in detail. This is what you need to do better. And then we look positive how you can get better. This is the steps you need to take then to do it.
Amazing.
No one else does that. And so that's been very popular, and that's gone on. And all this stuff about, you know, all the little things I've learnt over all the years about scouting and the players I've missed and everything, and how scouts work and what happens on trials is all in the book, The Scouting Game, which comes out in January.
Nice.
And so it all sort of fits together. And so the Insta stuff and whatever, it's all under the Scouting Game.
It's just marketing, basically.
It is. That's how we started to do it, raise the profile. But then people were just bombarding us with questions. What happens if my kid goes in on a trial? 2 academies want me. How do I choose one or the other? Why is my kid not getting an academy trial? We thought, we need to respond to this. And Julie was bright enough to say, hey, there's a business here. There's a business here.
It's amazing.
So we've gone on from there.
It's amazing. No, I can really see it helping a lot of players, families.
It's great. It's great for us to do.
I see you guys definitely enjoy it as well. I love watching you guys, the reels, man.
Oh yeah,
it's top tier.
Well,
she's always teasing you.
Yeah, I know. So you would have noticed, particularly she gives me a lot of stick on what I'm wearing. You know? And so today when I was coming out, I said, I'm doing that podcast this afternoon. So she said, right, okay, well, you need to dress reasonably smartly. Okay, so I put some clothes on. I come down and she says, no. I said, look, you just go and pick this. So she always will pick a check shirt. But she has a great sense of style and I don't. So I do what I'm told. You know? And she's great fun.
Man.
I love it.
Oh, that's brilliant. We can't wait for that book to come out, man. But thank you very much. I'd just like to end on a little quote for them because I think it links perfectly with what we're saying. It's from Bounce. And it talks about every endeavor pursued with passion produces a successful outcome regardless of the result. For it is not about winning or losing, rather the effort put forth in producing the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Do it with whatever you do. Do it with a passion.
That's it.
So, get the most from it.
That's it, man. So thank you very much
for that.
Thank you very much for coming on,
guys. Great to see
you. It's been great. So many gems. But yeah, that's us. So make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. And call to action again. You know, check out the Scouting Game.
100%.
Check out the Scouting Game and making sure that when you're going into a trial, making sure you're showing your character, your desire, you're being punctual, you're showing these attributes that's gonna make you most successful. Look at it like going to a job interview, you're battling for this position. You've got to make sure you're finding the 1% to make you stand out as a candidate, as a player. What are you doing beyond football? What are you doing to put yourself in the best position to go on and make yourself a successful career? And do you really want it? Are you willing to work?
Pay the price.
Pay the price.
People can tell.
People can tell. You can sniff it. You can smell it. Whether or not you don't want it and you're not ready for it. So yeah, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. We recently just released our subscription on Spotify, so make sure you guys join the Beyond Football movement, where we're pushing this message out, where having an identity beyond football is necessary, it's possible, and it's beneficial. So yeah, we're out.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys.